Hey friends, Andy here. How you doing? Good to see ya. And this is all my fault. Just kidding. What are we talking about in this video? Well, we're talking more about Luna and UST and a few updates that have happened since my last video. Primarily though, in this video, I'm gonna be talking about something exciting. We are presented with a very rare opportunity in crypto, whereas most of the time when stuff like this happens, you're just out of luck, never to get your money back. However, if you were affected by this whole Luna UST debacle, well then you might actually have some resolution. So I'm gonna be talking about exactly that, how you might be able to get your money back. And if you like getting things back, well then try smashing that like button and you will get my undying affection back in return. And if you want to be my friend, click that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. If you have done it already, be my double best friend by clicking that bell icon so YouTube lets you know the moment I released one of these, a video. All right, before I dive into things, let's take a look at the current state of Luna, what the price of Luna is right now. The price of one Luna token is $0.00246, a far cry from where it was just a short month ago. Again, if I show you the past week, it has essentially flatlined like a person in the emergency room who has mortal wounds and dies there on the table. Wow, that took a very dark turn. There has actually been a little bit of a pump, if you can call it that, from the very bottom of Luna. So if you were able to find and buy the local low of a few days ago, well then shortly thereafter you could enjoy yourself a 400 to 600% pump. But still, we're talking about fractions of a cent pumping. It has yet to go back over a cent or higher, but that doesn't mean there isn't money or opportunities here currently. And when I made my last video, the price of one UST was 12 cents, and well, now today it is 15 cents. And in the past couple days, it actually did pump its way back up to nearly 26 cents, but it has since fallen back down to where it is today at 15 cents. Still a very far cry from where it's supposed to be, which is, if you didn't know, $1. Everyone's favorite stable coin is still not stable or worth what it's supposed to be. All right, so that is the quick price update on both UST and Luna. And if you watched my last video on this entire topic, well, then you have a more clear picture, a broader picture of what all is currently happening. However, one thing I didn't talk about in my last video that I did want to cover briefly in this video is just about doing research into not just the projects, but also who is behind a crypto project. And in the case of Terraform Labs, well, if you didn't know, that is Do Kwon. And as all this story unfolds, as more stuff comes to light, as I get to dig more deeply into all these things, I get to see a clearer picture of who Do Kwon is. And admittedly, if I had known exactly what he's all about or how he operates, I might not have been as gung-ho about Anchor, UST, or Luna in the first place. Now, I think Do Kwon is a very smart person with some really cool ideas, ability to create some innovation or some really interesting experiments within the space. However, what he also is a very, in my opinion, arrogant and egotistical founder or leader of this project. And one thing I've learned in crypto is if you have a leader of a project, a leader of a crypto company who cannot receive feedback from others, who their way or the highway, they believe they're always right to a fault, that is a recipe for trouble long term. This is the same reason I have misgivings about other crypto projects like Strongblock or like Cardano. And to give you a few examples, you can hop on Twitter and you can see, just days before all this happens or when the actual initial depegging was starting to happen, you have Do Kwon on Twitter talking about how he loves chaos. Or you also have tweets like this where there is somebody who is talking about possible ways to break Terra and break UST, and this is Do Kwon's response. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read the last line, which says, "Billionaires in my following, go ahead, see what happens." Along with that, you can find plenty of examples of him mocking people, calling them poor and other insults. And I'll also drop in a couple of clips from interviews that, in hindsight, are kind of funny or interesting to watch.
I wonder how many of these companies you think are entering the space just because it's hot and there's a lot of funding versus the ones that will still be here, like 2 to 5 years later.
95% are going to die.
Yeah.
95% are going to die. Yeah. But yeah, there's also entertainment in watching companies die too.
But all this to say, my point here is simply that when someone thinks that they can't fail, or they openly taunt and challenge people about these ideas in such an aggressive and kind of nasty way, well, what I see there is someone who, while probably extremely smart, how smart can you be if you're not open to other ideas out there beyond your own? So yeah, the market is a big part of this whole big mess, and yeah, the actual attack, the depegging event itself has a whole bunch of other factors, but I think just purely ego is a big portion of this entire thing. Someone thought they were too good to fail, probably too big to fail, and yet here we are with a legitimately catastrophic system failure. But I don't want to focus just on the negative, so let's get skipping along to why you clicked on this video probably, which is how you could get your money back. If you haven't already, please jump into the Terra Money research forum. In here you will find all of the proposals that you can vote on as a Luna holder to hopefully fix this whole nasty problem. Now, it might be overly optimistic or overly ambitious to believe that this entire mess can be cleaned up and fixed, but there are very smart people making very real proposals right now on how they think this whole thing should be fixed. But you should definitely go on here and read through a bunch of these things and see exactly what people are saying. But like I showed in my last video, Do Kwon himself has a proposal in this forum for you to vote on. And I very, very briefly went over this in the last video, but essentially what would happen here is Do Kwon is saying, Luna and UST are gone for good. They're broken, they're done. Let's create something new. And when we do create this new thing, this new token with this supply, how we're gonna distribute this to everybody. And maybe it sounds good on the surface, new token, distribute it to everybody gets something. I think there's a few inherent flaws here. One, this is just saying, well, all that other stuff is broken, so forget about it. Let's just do something different. And I think personally that's glossing over a whole bunch of potential, but also just introducing maybe a whole new set of problems. But two, if you look on Twitter and find this account, Hams, they have a lot of really smart tweets about the entire Anchor, UST, and Luna ecosystem. But one tweet that stood out to me is they basically broke down Do Kwon's proposal to show what would happen if it was voted on, approved. Well, basically every UST holder would get 33 cents back on the dollar for what they lost. So Do Kwon's new revival plan would basically give you a third of your money back, and that's only based on the parameters he has set forth in that revival plan. And just right off the bat, I don't love that idea. Once you see the actual hard math and see what you get out of it, and then also know about all the other unknown factors with creating a whole new thing, this proposal doesn't look so good in my opinion. However, one of the beautiful things about crypto is the community. People like you who are watching this video, and one of you on my last video commented and said, hey Andy, what are your thoughts on the new proposal to refund 99.6% of all UST holders? Well, thanks, Al. And my first response when I saw this was, I don't know what you're talking about. But then I started digging a little deeper, and then I found exactly what you're talking about, and that's what I want to share in this video because I think it's a great idea. So if you hop into this Terra forum again and see all the proposals, you'll find one by Fat Man. And their proposal title is this: Tiered repayment, 1-to-1 USDC refund to all UST holders up to a certain cap per wallet using the LFG funds, favoring small wallets. So right off the bat, what does this mean? Well, LFG is the Luna Foundation Guard, but it also means let's go. The Luna Foundation Guard funds are the $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin that everyone's been talking about. So essentially, the very, very high level of this proposal is take that 1.5 billion, buy a bunch of USDC, which in my opinion now, looking at everything with a clearer set of eyes, is probably one of the safest stables out there right now. Buy up all that USDC and then deliver it to UST holders, favoring smaller wallets. Basically, what this would do is, in this person's opinion, believe that this is the most effective use of funds in the interim. With only 1 billion or 1.5 billion, the majority of affected users, in terms of numbers, can be made 100% whole instead of making all users 10 or 20% whole. So basically, what would happen here is they would take a snapshot of all the AUST and UST holders on the Terra blockchain at the time of the depeg, when the depeg happened. Then calculate the amount of money needed to pay the bottom 75% of users in full, which should only require $1 billion to $1.5 billion of those funds, because the top 100 anchor addresses have over 92% of the funds. So really, the vast majority of all the anchor addresses are smaller wallets, because the vast majority of all the UST was actually held by whales. Initially, this proposal was saying something along the lines of maybe all wallets that had 250,000 of AUST or less should be 100% refunded. Now, since this was initially proposed, there's been a few additions to it, a few changes. Number one, they're suggesting that only initial deposits made into Anchor will be eligible for the refund, not yield, which I think that's fine. If you just got your initial deposit out, then in that case, you would not be missing any money. You'd just be missing the money that you would have earned via that 19.5% yield. I think it's very fair. Two, this is all forms of UST on Terra would count in the first refund batch. So this is not just limited to Anchor. This is also when it's staked in other liquidity pools like Osmosis. And lastly, there has been the modification here that instead of just paying out small wallets, they will pay out all wallets, including whale wallets, but just up to a set cap. So I'm guessing this is a response to a lot of blowback by bigger wallets saying this is not fair, that we wouldn't get anything. And while I do agree to a degree, I do believe that most huge whale wallets are probably more protected as far as this impacts their entire portfolio compared to smaller holders of UST who might have like 50,000 of UST, but that 50,000 might be their entire portfolio. But either way, they're now suggesting a cap which looks like this. For example, with a hypothetical per wallet cap of $50,000, someone with 5,000 in Anchor would receive the full 5,000 as a refund, and someone with 800,000 would be limited to a $50,000 refund. This would still allow them to clear out debts from most Anchor users depending on how much money LFG has left. So anyways, that is this proposal, but this is one of many proposals that you should definitely go and read and research yourself if you have any vested interest in ever getting anything back from this whole thing. But this is not a perfect solution. There is probably no such thing, I'm sorry to say. But if we can all agree on something, or at least the majority of people can agree on something, I think doing something and getting some money back out there to all the holders of UST is better than nothing. But you might be saying, well, this is UST, what about Luna? Well, this person's proposal suggests that we forget about Luna because it is basically broken beyond repair, and I tend to agree looking at the crazy inflation that's happened with Luna, just seeing it spiral out of control and lose all value. So I'm a big fan of this proposal, but what about you? Do you like this proposal? Is there another one that you are currently favoring? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. So now this begs the question, what can you do? If you like this or like another proposal, how can you make this happen? How can you make your voice heard? Well, I'm gonna put the link to this down in the description. You can log in, you can vote on this. Again, this is something you can be active. You can actually make your voice heard in whatever way that's possible. Also, I think it's very important that if you had money in UST and you're affected by this, you should be like replying to the Luna or the Anchor Twitter accounts. You should be sending them emails. You should be posting in this forum. You should be making your voice and your concerns heard as much as possible. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is a rare opportunity in crypto where you can actually work together more or less and actually maybe make something happen to get somewhat of a relief to all of us who are affected by this. But it's up to you and me to make it happen. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up, which is the idea that, wow, Luna is so cheap. Once upon a time, it was $100+. I should buy a ton of Luna right now because whenever it goes back to $1 or $10, I'll be rich. Just a quick reminder, which I've already alluded to, is the problem of Luna's inflation. Luna was in the hundreds of millions of total tokens just a few weeks ago. As of this moment, right now, the total tokens for Luna is 6.9 trillion tokens. And if that hasn't quite hit home for you, that is actually an increase of, oh my God, that is an increase of 2.3 million%. To further send this idea home, let me show you what the price action would look like if Luna were to move up in the rankings. Right now, Luna is ranked number 48 on the crypto charts. So if we do a quick comparison, here's Luna on the left side. Now let's compare it. Let's say Luna gets back into the top 10, which is currently held by Polkadot. That would put the price of Luna at 0.0018 cents. Still not even 1 penny. Now let's say that by some long stretch of a miracle, Luna actually overtakes Bitcoin, becomes the #1 cryptocurrency, which, you know, with all this bad press, why wouldn't that be able to happen? Well, then in that case, it would finally cross the 1 cent barrier. It would become an 8-cent crypto token. So the idea of $1 Luna is super preposterous at this current moment with nearly 7 trillion in circulating supply. So can you make money with Luna? Well, yeah, sure. Lots of people already have, but I would say and argue that more people have actually lost money. They saw Luna at $1 and they bought a bunch, and then they watched it drop down to 1 cent. A bunch of people at 1 cent bought a bunch of Luna, then they watched it drop down to fractions of a cent, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm not trying to give you financial advice here or tell you what you can or can't do. There is opportunity here potentially, but there's also the reverse opportunity where you can lose a bunch of money as this thing dips even worse. But the main thing I would drive home here is how hard it would actually be for Luna to recover to its previous numbers with the economics that are currently happening in the token itself. And if at this point you're still wondering, what the heck are you talking about, Andy? Well, you should watch this video where I go over what has happened with the entire Luna and UST ecosystem. Otherwise, I hope you're staying safe out there in this crazy wild west of crypto, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.